So, I never thought I'd be the kind of guy writing on here, but lately, I've been realizing that sometimes life gives you the kind of lesson that makes you rethink everything. My story starts with something small, almost too small to notice. My wife, Lily, had been acting different. Not bad, not distant exactly, but more calculated. She started dressing up more for errands, makeup for grocery runs, heels to the post office. And every time I'd ask, she'd brush it off with, "Oh, I just like feeling good about myself." Fair enough, right? I mean, I wanted to support her confidence. I thought maybe she was just going through one of those self-improvement phases. Then came the discount. We were shopping for furniture, finally replacing that couch that had survived college, 2 apartments, and one particularly bad wine spill. The store manager, a guy named Rick, was way too friendly with her, complimenting her hair, her earrings, even her nails. I tried to laugh it off, but then he looked at me and said, "Since you're with Lily, I'll knock off 20%. I froze. Since I'm with Lily? What the hell was that supposed to mean? Lily laughed it off, lightly, like it was just some awkward joke. But I couldn't let it go. The next morning, she said she had to go finalize some paperwork at the store, and that's when the first real wave of suspicion hit me. I followed her. Yeah, I know, it's not my proudest moment, but something in my gut just screamed that I wasn't getting the whole truth. I parked across from the furniture store and watched her walk in. 15 minutes later, Rick locked the front door. And just like that, my stomach dropped. That's how it all started. The moment I realized that nothing is ever really free. I waited in my car for almost an hour. Every minute that passed felt like an hour of its own. My heart kept switching between "you're overreacting" and "you already know what's going on." When Lily finally walked out, she looked off. Her lipstick was smudged, her hair slightly messy, and she was trying too hard to look casual. She didn't see me as she got into her car. I watched her sit there for a minute, then adjust the mirror, probably checking herself, and drive off like nothing had happened. That night, I tried to keep it together. I made dinner. I waited for her to bring it up. Maybe she'd mention something, anything. But instead, she acted like everything was normal. Talking about her day, laughing, even reaching for my hand while we ate. And that's when I cracked. I said, "So how's Rick?" She froze. Not the kind of freeze where you're confused, but the kind that comes when you've just heard the words you hoped would never be spoken. "Rick?" she said, frowning. "Who's?" "Oh, the store manager?" "Yeah," I said, leaning back. "The one who gives special discounts." Her eyes widened for a split second, just a fraction of hesitation before she launched into defense mode. "What's that supposed to mean?" "He just gave me a discount because I've been in there a lot. That's all." I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. Silence does something words can't. It forces the truth to feel heavier. Then she got angry. "Are you seriously accusing me of something? Because if you don't trust me, maybe that's the real problem here." I told her I saw her car parked outside the store, that I saw Rick lock the door. Her face turned pale. Then, out of nowhere, she started crying. But they weren't guilt-ridden tears. They were caught tears. The kind you cry because you don't know how to spin your way out anymore. That night, I slept on the couch, the same one we were supposed to replace. The irony didn't miss me. The next morning, Lily was up early, like unnaturally early for a Saturday. I woke up to the sound of her typing on her laptop at the kitchen table. She looked tired, puffy-eyed, but calm, too calm. When I sat down, she didn't even look up. "We need to talk," she said, her tone clipped. I said, "Yeah, I figured." Then came the story. She claimed that Rick wasn't just a store manager. He was helping her with something. Apparently, she'd been talking to him about starting a small business, something to do with interior design, and he was mentoring her. The locked doors, according to her, were because he was showing her inventory after hours that wasn't on display yet. It sounded like the kind of lie someone rehearsed in front of a mirror. I asked her why she didn't just tell me that before. She hesitated, then said, "Because I wanted to surprise you. I thought it'd be nice to start something on my own without you thinking I was wasting money." I wanted to believe her. I really did. I'd seen enough people ruin relationships by not trusting each other. But the thing that didn't sit right was the lipstick. You don't need to fix your lipstick for business mentorship. I asked her if she could show me any emails, messages, anything that backed up her story. She said she deleted them. Rick said he preferred to talk in person. He's old school. Right. But here's where things got weird. Later that afternoon, while she was showering, her phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't want to snoop, but I did. I couldn't stop myself. The message preview read, "Rick, she bought it." And that's when my blood went cold. I didn't even open the message. I just stared at it until the screen went dark. My mind was spinning. She bought it? Bought what? The story? It hit me that the lie wasn't just about cheating. It was deeper. Something was going on between them, something with money or manipulation or both. And I was about to find out just how far it went. After seeing that text, "She bought it?" Something inside me snapped. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was insult. Like they both thought I was some idiot husband too dumb to notice what was right in front of me. I didn't say anything right away. I played along. Pretended I was starting to believe her business story. But that night, when she went to bed, I pulled out my laptop and started digging. First, I looked up the furniture store. Rick wasn't listed anywhere on their official website. Weird. So I went through public business records, and that's when I found it. Rick wasn't a manager. He was an independent contractor who rented part of the showroom for his own side business. And it got worse. The business name? It was registered under Lily's name too. My wife and this guy had opened an LLC together. I sat there staring at the document, my hands shaking. All those business mentorship stories suddenly made sense, just not in the way she wanted me to think. The next morning, I printed the papers and left them on the kitchen counter. I went to work and waited. Around noon, she called me, her voice trembling. "Why would you go through my stuff like that?" she snapped, skipping straight past the part where she might explain why she'd lied. I said, "You didn't tell me you went into business with him. You didn't even tell me you were thinking about it." She went quiet, then said, "Because you wouldn't have supported me." That line, "you wouldn't have supported me," is what cheaters and liars always say when they get caught. It's a way to make you feel like you caused the deception. I asked her point blank, "Are you sleeping with him?" Silence. Then she whispered, "It's not like that." No, just not like that. I hung up the phone. That night, I didn't go home. I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot for hours, thinking about all the times she said, "Nothing in life is free." Now I knew what she meant. She was learning that firsthand, and apparently, I was paying the price. I don't know what came over me that next morning. I wasn't even sure what I was planning to do. All I knew was that I couldn't sit in the dark anymore wondering what they were hiding. So, I drove straight to the furniture store. Rick was there, smiling, casual, like he hadn't just detonated a bomb in my life. When he saw me, that smile slipped for half a second, then came back, weaker. "Hey man," he said, stepping forward. "Everything okay?" I didn't bother with small talk. I pulled out the printed LLC paperwork and slapped it on the counter. "You want to tell me what this is?" He glanced at it and said, "Oh, that's complicated." "Try me," I said. He sighed, leaned back against the counter, and said, "Look, your wife wanted to start a side hustle. I helped her set it up, but it's not what you think." Of course it wasn't. It never is. When I asked him what kind of side hustle, he said something that made my stomach drop again. "It's a home staging company. You know, like decorating empty houses for real estate listings." She's been doing a few side jobs under my supervision to get her feet wet. I asked him why it was registered under both their names if he was just helping. He said, "Because she used my credit to get the startup loan." That stopped me cold. "Loan? What loan?" He shrugged. "You'll have to ask her about that." And just like that, my whole reality tilted. A loan? Under his credit? Using her name? When I got home, she was already there, sitting on the couch. Funny enough, Rick's couch. The same one he discounted for us. She looked pale, like she knew I'd just come from seeing him. I asked her straight out, "Did you take out a loan with him?" She nodded. "It's not what it sounds like," she said again, her favorite phrase lately. Apparently, she'd borrowed money, $10,000, to get the business off the ground. But she'd done it behind my back because she didn't want to involve me financially until it was successful. The thing is, she didn't tell me where the $10,000 went. And that's when I realized she was in deeper than I thought, financially, emotionally, maybe even legally. And somehow, I was tied to all of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, the ticking of the clock, even Lily's shallow breathing from the bedroom. $10,000. That number just looped in my head like a curse. By morning, I decided to find out where it went. If she wasn't going to tell me, I'd figure it out myself. I started by checking our joint bank account. Nothing. No large withdrawals, no mysterious payments. So, she hadn't used our shared funds. That meant she either had another account or used cash. When I asked her about it later, she brushed it off with, "It's just tied up in inventory. Props, fabrics, equipment." I asked, "Where are they?" She looked at me and said, "They're in storage." "Then show me." That's when she lost it. She yelled that I didn't trust her, that I was invading her privacy, that she was trying to build something for us. But her anger felt rehearsed, like she was using it to cover panic. So, when she left to meet a client that afternoon, I followed her again. She didn't go to a client's house. She drove 30 minutes out of town to a dingy strip mall, parked behind a nail salon, walked into a back office with a sign that said Quick Cash Financial Services. That's when my stomach turned. I waited until she came out. She was carrying a manila envelope and looking around like she was checking for someone. When she saw my car, she froze. I didn't even wait for her to speak. I walked up and said, "Is that where the 10,000 went?" Her face went white. I took the envelope from her hand before she could react. Inside, loan payment receipts. But not to Rick. Not even to a bank. To a guy named Vincent. A loan shark. I said, "Who the hell is Vincent?" Her eyes filled with tears. He's someone Rick knows. He said he could help us get faster funding for the business." I couldn't even process it. My wife had gone behind my back, borrowed money from a guy named Vincent through Rick, and tied herself, and maybe me, to God knows what kind of debt. That's when I realized this wasn't about love or cheating anymore. This was about survival. 3 days later, Vincent called me. I don't even know how he got my number. His voice was calm, polite even, the kind of politeness that feels like a threat wrapped in courtesy. He said, "Mr. Holloway, this is Vincent. I understand there's been some confusion about your wife's account." My blood ran cold. "Her account?" I asked. "Yes," he said, with a smile I could hear through the phone. "The one she and Mr. Ricker opened. We just need to discuss repayment terms before things get complicated." He said it softly, not angry, just matter of fact, like telling me the weather. We met the next morning at a coffee shop. He looked completely normal. Suit, trim beard, wedding ring. If I hadn't known, I'd have thought he was a real estate agent. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were loan papers, signed by Lily and me. Except, I never signed anything. "Your name is on it," he said. "Joint account, joint liability. Standard procedure." I looked at the signature. It was a shaky version of mine. Not perfect, but close enough to fool someone not looking too closely. "She forged my signature," I said quietly. Vincent gave a small shrug. "That's between you two. All I know is, someone owes me 15,000 now, with interest." 15? It was 10. He smiled again. "Missed payments, late fees, new schedule. You know how it goes." I asked him if he threatened her, if she was in danger. He said, "No, no threats. She just doesn't realize how this works yet. But you seem like the kind of man who does." When I got home, I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I just sat there and asked her one question. "Why did you sign my name?" She started crying again, said she didn't mean to, that she thought she'd pay it back before I ever found out. That Rick said it was just a formality. But at that moment, I realized it wasn't just about deceit. It was about contempt. She didn't respect me enough to even include me in the disaster she was building. And the worst part? Now it was my disaster, too. At first, I thought maybe Vincent was bluffing, that he'd just bark a little to scare us into paying faster. But a few days later, reality showed up in the ugliest way possible. It started with phone calls. Not to me, to my work. My manager said some guy called, asking if I still worked there and if I was financially stable. The next morning, there were 2 missed calls on my personal phone from a blocked number. Then, a text. "Time is money, Mr. Holloway." That's when I knew things were serious. Lily, meanwhile, was a wreck. She barely left the house. She kept saying she'd fix it, but every time I asked how, she just cried. She wasn't scared of me. She was scared of him. I told her we were going to the police, but she begged me not to. You don't understand, she said. They'll make it worse. Rick said Vincent doesn't like cops involved. That was the first time she mentioned Rick in days, and hearing his name lit a fuse in me. I drove to the furniture store again, but this time it was empty. Closed. Lights out. A for lease sign on the window. Rick had vanished. That's when it clicked. Rick had set her up. He used her name, dragged her into Vincent's loan, and when it all blew up, he disappeared. But since the paperwork had our names on it, Vincent didn't care who was responsible, just who was available to pay. 2 nights later, someone knocked on our door at midnight. I opened it to find an envelope taped to the handle. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No words, just a photo. It was Lily, taken from a distance, leaving our house that morning. No note. No demand. Just a message, we see you. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the couch, lights off, waiting for something, anything, to happen. And for the first time since this all started, I wasn't angry anymore. I was terrified. By that point, I was done waiting. Terrified, yes, but also furious. Every instinct in me said this wouldn't end until I understood exactly what I was dealing with. I started small. A coworker of mine used to be a private investigator before switching careers. I asked him, off the record, how someone could track where a person like Rick had gone. He gave me a name of someone who could help, quietly, no questions asked. The guy didn't even need much. Just a name and the business registration. 2 days later, he called me back and said, "You're not gonna like this." Rick had 3 other businesses registered under different names, all in different cities. Each one followed the same pattern. Small retail front, short-term, partners, then bankruptcy and disappearance. In every case, someone else's name ended up attached to the debt. He was running a con. And the last person on the paperwork before he vanished this time? Lily Holloway. I felt sick. But there was one more twist. The investigator said something about Vincent that I still can't forget. He's not just a loan shark. He's Rick's brother-in-law. So, this whole thing, the business, the loan, the fake mentorship, it was all one elaborate trap. A scam that used people's ambition and trust to make them sign their lives away. I told Lily everything. She just sat there, trembling, whispering, I didn't know. I didn't know. I believed her this time. She looked genuinely destroyed. But knowing the truth didn't fix anything. We were still on the hook for the debt. The fake signatures didn't matter much without a lawyer. And even if we got one, Vincent wasn't exactly the type to care about what was legal. That night, I made a decision. I packed a bag and told Lily I was staying at a hotel for a few days. Not because I didn't care, but because if Vincent's people were watching, I didn't want to lead them back to her. She cried, begged me to stay. But I just said, "You wanted to build something on your own, Lily. Now I have to protect what's left of mine." I walked out without looking back. I spent the next week lying low at the hotel, trying to think clearly. Every call, every buzz of my phone made my stomach drop. I knew Vincent wasn't done, but I also knew I couldn't hide forever. I called him, not from my cell, but from a burner I'd bought in cash. "Mr. Holloway," he said, calm as ever. "I was wondering when you'd call." "I want out," I said. "I'll pay what's owed, but no threats. No games." He laughed softly. "You think you can pay me off? You have no idea what this cost me to set up." "What do you mean?" I asked, trying not to sound scared. "It's not about the money," he said. "It's about principle. People like your wife, people like you, want things for nothing. Nothing is free, Mr. Holloway. You think you can just enter someone's world and walk away? Every action has a cost." I realized then he wasn't just a loan shark. He was a philosopher in a very twisted way. Every scam, every debt, every manipulated signature was his way of proving that nothing comes without sacrifice. I told him, "Fine. Then I'll pay your costs. But I want Rick. I want him out of the picture." Vincent was silent for a long time. Then he said, "You'll never see Rick. He's gone. And I think you already know that chasing him won't help." It was true. Rick was a ghost, as expected. And by the end of that call, I realized Vincent had won something more than money. He'd shaken me to my core. But I also realized something about myself. I wasn't going to let fear dictate my life anymore. If Lily wanted to play her games, that was her choice. But I had to reclaim control over my own actions. That night, I drove back home, unsure what I'd find, but certain of one thing. This marriage, this life, was no longer mine in the same way. I came back home late that night. The house was dark, silent, except for the faint hum of the fridge. Lily was sitting on the couch, curled up with her laptop, scrolling through something, probably trying to keep herself distracted. When she saw me, she froze. Not the casual, "Oh, you're back," freeze, but the kind where someone knows they're about to lose control of a situation. I sat across from her, letting the silence stretch. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said, "We need to talk." She nodded, quiet, pale. I told her everything I'd learned. The LLC, Rick's con, the loan, Vincent. I told her about the texts, the envelope, the calls, the fact that we were now tied to this debt. Every lie, every betrayal. Her face crumbled. She started crying, not the fake, caught tears, but real ones. "I didn't know it would get this bad," she said. "I thought I was just helping us get ahead. I didn't think Rick would. He promised me he'd protect us." I shook my head. Promises don't matter anymore. Actions do. You dragged both of us into this mess without asking me. And now we're both paying for it. She stayed quiet after that. No excuses, no more lies. Just tears. I realized something then. I had a choice. I could stay, try to rebuild trust that had been shattered, or I could walk away. I didn't answer immediately. I just sat there, looking at the woman I loved and wondering if I even knew her anymore. The next morning, I woke up early. Lily was still asleep, curled up on the couch like she had been all night. I made myself coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the paperwork, the texts, the traces of what had been done behind my back. I thought about everything. Her lies, the secret loan, Rick, Vincent. I thought about how scared I'd been, how powerless, how manipulated. And then I thought about myself, about my life, my sanity. I realized I couldn't stay. I couldn't live constantly on edge, wondering what the next betrayal would be. So I made the call. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "Lily, we need to separate. I can't be part of this anymore." She woke up then, her eyes wide, panicked. "Wait, what? You can't just leave." I said, "I'm not leaving because I don't care. I'm leaving because I need to care about myself first. I can't fix what's broken here." She tried to argue, tried to explain, tried to promise she'd make things right. I listened, but inside, I already knew my answer. I had to protect myself, my future, and my peace of mind. I moved out that week, staying with a friend. It was messy, emotional, and complicated, but every step away from her felt like reclaiming a little piece of myself that had been buried under lies and manipulation. Moving out was just the beginning. The emotional part was one thing, but the financial fallout was a nightmare waiting to happen. I knew Vincent wasn't going to forget us anytime soon. The debt, the forged signature, it all still hung over me like a storm cloud. First, I went to a lawyer. I explained everything. The forged signatures, the secret loan, Rick's con, and Vincent's threats. She shook her head and said, "You're lucky you came to me before they tried to collect in person. We can contest the forged signatures, but it will be messy. And risky." Risky was an understatement. Next, I changed all my accounts, updated passwords, notified my bank, and kept a low profile. I knew Vincent's philosophy all too well. Nothing is free. If he could, he would find a way to make me pay. Meanwhile, Lily moved back to her parents' house. She tried calling me a few times, apologizing, explaining, begging, but I didn't respond. I had to let the dust settle before I could think clearly. I started therapy, mainly just to process everything. Betrayal isn't just a moment, it's a lingering shadow. And Rick, Vincent, Lily, they all left me with a heavy shadow. But slowly, I began to reclaim control over my own life. I realized one thing. People who manipulate, lie, and con aren't just doing it to hurt you. They're testing whether you'll let them. And I wasn't going to anymore. Sitting in my new apartment, far from the chaos of the past few months, I started thinking about everything that happened. It wasn't just the lies, the secret loans, or the threats. It was the way people can manipulate trust, twist ambition, and take advantage of the good intentions of others. I learned that nothing in life is truly free. Not money, not favors, not even love when it's paired with deceit. Every action has a cost, and sometimes that cost is higher than you ever imagined. I also learned about boundaries. I used to believe that love meant tolerance, patience, and blind trust. Now I know love also requires awareness, respect, and mutual responsibility. If one person disregards the other's safety, finances, or emotions, that's not love, it's danger. I realized I had to reclaim my sense of self. I had to stop feeling guilty for protecting myself. I had to forgive myself for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. And I realized the importance of vigilance. Not paranoia, not obsession, but awareness. Life has a way of showing its harsh lessons slowly, and if you ignore the signs, you pay the price. Here's the part where I wrap it all up, and hopefully, someone reading this can take something away without going through what I did. I didn't go back to Lily. I kept my distance, kept my finances secure, and focused on rebuilding my life. The debt? My lawyer managed to contest the forged signatures, and while it wasn't perfect, I avoided the worst of Vincent's wrath. Rick vanished, just like before, and I realized some people are ghosts. They exist only to teach you a harsh lesson. What I learned is simple, but brutal. Trust is earned, not assumed. People who say nothing is free often mean it in the worst way. Ambition, love, favors, they can all come with hidden costs if you're not careful. And sometimes, the person closest to you, the one you think is a partner, can be the one who drags you into the deepest mess. My advice: watch for the red flags, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to walk away. Protect yourself first, because if you don't, no one else will. And yes, sometimes it hurts more to leave than to stay, but in the end, leaving might just save you. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm cautious, aware, and stronger than I was before. And for anyone reading this, love, friendship, and trust are priceless, but they're not free. Protect them. Protect yourself.